Welcome to CrimePod Castle. I'm thrilled to have you here for the 8th episode of our series Ghosts of the Past. Today, we're diving into a case from 1978 India that shook the nation, the Ranga-Billa case.
It's a story that really captures a dark time in India's history. It wasn't just the crime itself, but how it impacted the conversation around justice and societal safety, especially for young people.
Exactly. It's about the kidnapping, assault, and murder of two teenagers, Sanjay and Geeta Chopra. Can you imagine their excitement? They were on their way to an all-India radio program rehearsal. They were about to perform.
It's heartbreaking, and what makes this case so gripping is that it challenged the idea of safety. Sanjay and Geeta came from a well-respected family. Their father was a naval commander. It shook people to their core that this could happen to anyone.
So that the perpetrators Ranga, also known as Kojit Singh, and Billa, also known as Jasbir Singh, these guys weren't just petty criminals, were they?
Absolutely not. They had a long rap sheet already. Theft, assault, even murder. They were driving around Delhi in a stolen Fiat, essentially on a crime spree when they came across Sanjay and Geeta.
It sounds like something out of a nightmare. They tricked the teenagers pretending to be friendly, offering them a ride.
And it quickly turned horrific. They drove the siblings to a secluded area outside the city where Geeta was sexually assaulted. Imagine young Sanjay trying to protect his sister against these hardened criminals.
It's hard to even think about. And in a rage, Ranga and Billa murdered both Sanjay and Geeta and dumped their bodies. It took 2 days for the police to find them.
The public was outraged. They were demanding justice. And thankfully, because of some excellent police work, Ranga and Billa were caught within weeks. The stolen Fiat was key. It directly linked them to the crime.
Of course, catching them was just the beginning. The trial was a media frenzy. I can't imagine what the Chopra family went through having to relive everything in court.
It must have been incredibly difficult, but their fight for justice, their persistence was really inspiring. The prosecution built a strong case. They had confessions, forensic analysis, eyewitness accounts. It all pointed to Ranga and Billa.
So in the end, justice was served. Both were found guilty and sentenced to death. It was a landmark case, not just for the severity of the crime, but for what it revealed about India's legal system.
Exactly. The Ranga-Billa case really pushed India to confront the need for stricter laws, especially around protecting women and children. It forced a nationwide dialogue about societal responsibility and what could be done to prevent future tragedies.
This case is a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist, but it's also a testament to the power of resilience and the pursuit of justice. Sanjay and Geeta's story is one we should never forget.
It's a reminder to be vigilant, to look out for one another, and to never give up on fighting for what's right.
What are your takeaways from this deep dive? What questions are still lingering in your mind? Share your thoughts and let's keep the conversation going.
Don't forget to subscribe to the deep dive for more explorations like this. And be sure to tell a friend. Maybe this is a story they need to hear too. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep diving deep. The Ranga-Billa case, it wasn't just about those two criminals and their horrific acts. It became a symbol, a focal point for a nation trying to figure out some really tough questions.
Yeah, like, how do we protect our most vulnerable citizens? What needs to change to prevent tragedies like this from happening again?
Exactly. And one of the biggest outcomes was a renewed focus on laws protecting women and children. It wasn't just about harsher punishments. It was about creating a legal system that recognized just how vulnerable these groups are.
So it was about being tough on crime, but also about being smart in how you approach it from a legal standpoint. Did any new laws come out of this?
Oh, absolutely. The Ranga-Billa case was a major reason why the Indian Penal Code, which is like the backbone of their criminal law system, was amended. These amendments addressed things like sexual assault, kidnapping, and really made the punishments for crimes against minors much more severe.
That's a big step. But amending laws is one thing. Did they create any completely new laws because of this?
They did. The case really pushed for the introduction of new legislation that was specifically designed to protect women and children. And it wasn't just for show, it was a real commitment to dealing with the problems that the Ranga-Billa case had exposed.
So the impact of this case went way beyond just those involved.
Yeah.
It's like they used this awful event to try and make a safer future for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It was like a wake-up call for lawmakers. They had to look at the gaps in their legal system and actually do something to fix them.
But laws are only part of the story. We also talked about how society's views changed. How did people's perceptions shift after this?
Well, there was definitely a change in how aware people were about safety, especially for women. The case brought those issues out in the open, made people confront some pretty uncomfortable realities.
So it wasn't just about laws changing. It was about how people talked about these issues and saw them.
Exactly. People started to realize that protecting women and children meant changing attitudes and behaviors, not just laws.
And we can't forget about the police. We talked about the allegations of forced confessions. Were there any calls for police reform?
You know, the Ranga-Billa case really put a spotlight on how police do their job, especially things like interrogation tactics and how they handle evidence. Those allegations of coerced confessions really sparked a lot of debate within the police force.
Right, because it's not just about catching criminals. It's about making sure that justice is served the right way. Did that debate actually lead to any changes in how police do things?
There was definitely a push for more transparency and accountability within the police. The case showed everyone how important due process is. You have to make sure that the rights of the accused are protected, even when there's a lot of public pressure to get a conviction.
Can you break down due process for our listeners who might not be familiar with legal terms? Why is it so important in a case like this one?
Due process basically means that everyone, no matter what they're accused of, has the right to a fair legal process. It's about making sure the government follows the rules and that people's rights are protected throughout the whole thing.
So even in a really emotionally charged case like this one, where people really want to see the perpetrators punished, due process is still crucial.
Absolutely. It's about making sure that guilt is determined based on real evidence and a fair trial, not just on public pressure or emotions.
It sounds like the Ranga-Billa case, while definitely a tragedy, ended up being a catalyst for some much-needed change. It forced India to take a hard look at itself and work towards a safer and more just society.
Yes, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about this case. While we remember the victims and what happened to them, we also see how their story led to real change, a legacy that's still shaping India's laws and values today.
It's amazing how one case, as horrible as it was, could lead to so much change. It makes you think about how powerful it can be when people come together and demand justice.
It shows that even when things are really bad, people can still push for progress. The Ranga-Billa case became this symbol of needing a safer society.
And it wasn't just a moment of anger either. This case is still talked about and studied today. Why do you think it's still so relevant after all this time?
I think it's a reminder that if we become complacent, terrible things can happen. We have to stay aware, fight for what's right, and always try to build a society where everyone feels safe.
Besides the changes in laws and society, the Ranga-Billa case also brings up how we remember these tragedies.
Yeah.
How do we make sure they're not forgotten?
That's so important. Remembering isn't just about honoring the victims, it's about learning from what happened. The Ranga-Billa case is like this important study in criminal law forensics and social justice. It's talked about in schools, courtrooms, and all over the place, helping us figure out how to stop something like this from happening again.
So it's not just about looking back and feeling sad. It's about using the past to make the present and future better.
Exactly. When we study this case, we can see where things went wrong, how effective the legal system was, and come up with new ways to make things safer. It's a way to honor Sanjay and Geeta's memory to try and create a world where these tragedies don't happen.
And it's important to remember that this case isn't just history. The things that brought up violence against women and children needing a fair legal system, those are still issues today.
You're right. The Ranga-Billa case reminds us that the fight for justice never ends. We have to be aware, hold our systems accountable, and always speak up for a safer and more just world.
This deep dive has been so insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise and helping us understand this case and its impact.
The Ranga-Billa case deserves to be remembered, discussed, and learned from. It shows us that terrible things can happen, but it also shows the strength of people fighting for what's right.
And to our listeners, if this conversation has made you think, we encourage you to learn more about this case and share your thoughts. Let's keep learning, questioning, and working towards a better future. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more, and we'll see you next time.